everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are joined by Mr. Michael Fass, Director of Product at Roon Labs.
Thank you for having me.
Oops, was that the wrong button?
Sounds
Okay,
all
dear.
right to me.
I got
Yeah,
this little soundboard here.
gotcha. Cool.
So what's up, man? Nice meeting you here. So I've
Thanks
been
for having
trying
me.
out, yeah, I've been trying out Roon for the past week. Solid program. I quite like it myself. Um, I didn't learn about it till like I don't know, maybe a year or two ago. I kept hearing about like J River and then Rune, and then I found out that it's kind of like a music aggregator, like service aggregator. Same thing as like J River does, except it's a little bit more comprehensive. But I'll let you explain to the audience what it is.
Sure. So I mean, at a very kind of basic level, Roon is a music player, but it does kind of a whole lot more than that also. So obviously, you can import all of your files and all of your albums, and Roon is going to do a lot of kind of magic metadata upgrading to bring in the credits and make sure the album cover looks great and sort of cross-link it by genre and who produced the music, and it really gives you whether you're a rock fan or a jazz fan, classical, pop, rap, R&B, it really kind of is designed to take your music and put it in context, right? It gives you all this information and all these ways to browse, and it's not just about like local content. A lot of people, including me, still collect files and still collect music and still purchase albums all the time and that kind of thing. But it also integrates title, it integrates COBAs, and so in most countries around the world, you can log into those services in Roon, and it kind of gives you this comprehensive view of your music, right? So you may have an album on your hard drive that's also available on COBAs or title and super high res, right? And so all of that content kind of comes together and gives you this view of your library that that for us as music lovers and music collectors, we're all pretty obsessive about this stuff. It gives you a view of that as almost like what you would see 20, 30 years ago looking at a wall of CDs or a wall of vinyl, right? You can pull the music that you love off the shelf, and you can look at who was actually involved in the creation of that music. And then the nice thing about what Roon does is it'll then play it all over the house, and it'll play it in lossless quality. You can use DSP to make it sound even better, right? You don't have to do that, but it will play to every room of the house, to all sorts of different devices, whether you have AirPlay devices or Chromecast devices. And we have a program that we call Roon Ready, where we've worked with over 100 different audio manufacturers to have our technology built into their audio devices, right? So when you're playing to those devices, you get all kinds of amazing integration points, right? The remote knows what's going on, the iPad knows what's going on, and everything kind of works together like a system. And so it's very easy to have all of your music all around the house, if for people who really kind of care about having the best possible experience.
Yeah, so you mentioned Rune Ready. There's like Rune Ready and Rune Tested. What's the difference between those two?
So they're both kind of like related to the ways that we collaborate with audio manufacturers. So we actually our kind of team started life in back in the early 2000s as a company called Sulus, and we had a music server that was extremely expensive, but you could put it in your house and play music to every room. And we ended up becoming part of Meridian Audio in the UK, and they make incredible home audio products, home theater. I mean, they're just it doesn't come cheap, but it's really incredible stuff. And so working with them, we saw how magical it can be when the software and hardware all works together, right? The amp is turned off and you hit play and it turns on, it goes to the right input. Everything is just kind of like, when everything kind of clicks together like that, it really is amazing. And so when we launched Roon, we started reaching out to manufacturers, and it took a little time to get it going. But as we reached out to manufacturers and we showed them that kind of, the experience that you would get with a Meridian system, we can do that with your product for your customers as well. We can make it so that when you hit play, the device switches over and the music just starts, and we can give you all of these tools. And so we've been working with all of these audio manufacturers over the last, since we launched in 2015. And that's allowed us to kind of ensure that not only on a sound quality perspective and a user experience perspective, that any device that has the Roon Ready or the Roon Tested certification is going to kind of work great out of the box. It's really allowed us to kind of move into all kinds of markets and talk to all kinds of customers that we don't normally, that might not be in the market for a product like Roon. So Roon Ready means that the device actually has our technology built into the box, right? And so generally, it's always going to be kind of a network device. You put it on your network, you put it on your Wi-Fi, you plug it into Ethernet or whatever, and Roon is going to kind of do the rest. We're going to find it on the network. There's no setup. There's very little configuration. I mean, there's always, depending on which device you're using, there's all kinds of options that you can tweak. But in a lot of cases, it's going to do things like putting the cover art on the front panel of the device and allowing the remote to pause and skip tracks, through Roon, right? So everything is kind of working together. That's Roon Ready. Roon Tested is similar in that these are devices that we have worked with manufacturers to bring them into our lab. They are tested by our team. We find problems with them. We send them back to the company. We kind of demand that they fix them so that we can ensure that we're delivering a great experience to our customers. And then once we feel like we're confident that the device is going to deliver a great experience, it gets this kind of Roon Tested certification. But those are going to be devices that plug in generally like via USB. There's some that work over the network but aren't in fact Roon Ready. But Roon Ready involves our technology in the device, whereas Roon Tested just means that we've worked closely with the company who manufactured the device to ensure that it's a great experience and that it works great and it sounds great. And I have some features I can show you later in the app that when you're using these devices, Roon gives you a way to make sure, like, is the sound being changed at all? Is there any processing happening? Like, these are things that for a lot of our customers are extremely important. Is the music, am I hearing the music losslessly? Is anything changing here? Or am I hearing the exact file that I ripped to my hard drive or that I'm streaming from Tidal or whatever? So those are the distinctions there.
Right. What's the best quality you can get out of it? Because I know you can do USB into your integrated or your pre-pro, and then you can also do like AirPlay and Chromecast.
Yep, yeah, you can do AirPlay, you can do Chromecast. We play to Sonos devices. We play to we play to Squeezebox. There's a lot of, we play to all of the KEF speakers as well, right? So there's a huge list on the website that everybody should check out. But as far as like the highest quality, it's kind of only limited by the files that are out there in the world and like what the gear that we play to can support, right? There's no real limit in Roon. I think there may be some files that there are like 3s of them in the whole world that are like, they're not commercially,
Yeah.
You're not going to go on a website and buy some of these file formats, but whether it's like the DSD stuff or Super, 24192, all that stuff is supported in Roon. And because we have these, because we have this gear in-house when we're developing the software, when we're doing all the QA testing and all that kind of stuff, you can be pretty confident with Roon, especially with Roon Ready and Roon Tested devices, that we know what the highest quality that the device can support is. And when you hit play, that's what you're going to hear, right? So it's because everything is kind of tightly integrated that way. There's a lot less kind of configuration, troubleshooting, that kind of stuff. Things just work. And you don't have to kind of worry, like, is the sound being degraded? Obviously, different kinds of protocols have limitations. AirPlay can only stream, so, it only goes, I think, to 1644.1 or whatever, right? So, but again, like in my home, I like to know that I'm listening to high res and that nothing has changed, but like my wife doesn't particularly care, right? So for her, whether she's playing to the Chromecast or the Unity Atom or whatever, right? She just hits play, and so we both get a kind of a peace of mind from that experience.
Did you guys come out? Because I remember Sulu's way back in the day. Was that before Sonos or was it after?
It was like I don't remember exactly like month by month, but it was very, very close. Like I remember we both of those products like launched at the same time, and I'm reasonably sure that nobody knew about the other one when they were
Right.
kind of in the very early phases, and then we both came out and we started seeing like on Google, like, did you mean Sonos? And we're like,
Yeah, yeah.
no,
I
we
remember seeing
didn't,
that too.
right? But yeah, it's I think it's more of a coincidence than a who came first kind of thing.
Yeah, because I remember that way back in the day. I was like Sonos and Subarus. That's like weird.
Yeah, it was a little close for comfort, but I think it was too close. It was just right at the same point there.
Yeah, so you want to show some features in the app here?
Sure, yeah,
Or
absolutely. Let me get screen here. Make sure I'm sharing the right screen.
speaking of room tested and room ready, is there like a specific set of hardware requirements or software requirements that it has to meet each product?
So before I go into the demo, I'll just say, like, as far as an architecture standpoint, because Roon is doing so much with metadata and audio processing, it does require that the app is running somewhere in your home, right? That could be on your laptop. But we also we have a product called Nucleus that a lot of customers opt to go out and buy Nucleus because you can get this box, you can plug it in, put it on your network, and suddenly every room of your house has music, right? Whatever device you have in that room, AirPlay devices, Chromecast, whatever, it's just very, very plug and play. We also allow people to kind of, you can go on our site and you can get the Amazon list and buy like an Intel NUC and assemble it yourself and put it together if you're more of a DIY type, and you can get that same experience of kind of having a music appliance in the home, right? That at any point you can pick up your phone or your iPad or your laptop and hit play, and you don't have to worry about anything. Like, all of your content's always going to be available. And so, as far as like the hardware required, you can go on our website and download the app and start a free trial right now. But if once you've kind of invested in the experience and you're enjoying having Roon around, you get into a situation where other people in your home, your family, are gonna want to use Roon, and if it's living on your laptop, and you're like, you're traveling or you take the laptop out of the house, the experience of having an appliance in the house is actually a really nice thing. So,
Yeah.
um, so this is the sort of the overview screen that you land on when you first use Roon. We've got some kind of just the app is showing you some albums that you've added to your library recently. This is actually not my main library. It's a library that I set up earlier today just to make sure that we had kind of a good collection to play with here. So you can see I've been listening to a little bit of music today, but generally this is going to kind of show you everything that you've been listening to. And then as you're listening to music, Roon is going to kind of go through and give you some recommendations. But the kind of the centerpiece of Roon is the idea of your collection, right? These are my albums, right? And so this is albums that are on my hard drive. You can see some of these albums have a little title symbol up in the corner. So this stuff just lives side by side, right? This Alice Coltrane album is on a hard drive in my home, and this Alice Cooper album is coming from Tidal, right? And so those distinctions may matter to me in a given moment or whatever, but when I have an album in mind that I want to listen to, it doesn't actually matter, right? To me, it's all about the music and the artists that I love. So as a kind of a good starting point, I always feel like this is a great album to kind of begin with. So this is a Pharrell album from a couple years ago, and this kind of is starting to get you into some of the sort of magic of Roon. So these are just files that I have on my hard drive, right? I have they're CD quality FLAC files that I have on my laptop, but so none of this data is actually in the files, right? It's all coming into Roon when you set up your library and you import all this. You import your library in, right? And you can see that we've gone out from these files of this Pharrell album, and we've gone out and we've pulled in all of these kind of credits, right? And the thing to kind of notice here is, I see some names that I know really well, and I see some names that I don't know that well, but everything's a link, right? I don't know exactly who Andrew Coleman, the engineer, is, but if I click through, I can see everything that he's done, right? And that's going to be in my library and outside my library. So, if we start here and we kind of click through to Pharrell Williams here, this is kind of another kind of primary screen of the app for us, which is this artist page. And again, for us as music fans, understanding these albums, who's playing the horns, who's playing bass, who produced this, that's so critical for kind of really getting the context and understanding the music that we love. So for Pharrell here, I have some biographical information here at the top. When was he born? Which groups has he been a part of? I can click through to his Instagram if I want to, right? And I have some of his kind of top tracks. And then in my library, I have the album that we were just looking at. But what's kind of cool here is that we also have an album here, which is a collaboration that he did with a group called, I think it's pronounced Gescheffelstein. And in some apps, like this might be kind of mixed up under some weird like artist name where they're combined, but Roon has correctly identified that album is collaborative, and it's put it on both artist pages, so it's showing up in the right place. And then Roon is really using these credits to dig kind of even deeper, right? So these are 28 albums in my library that all have appearances by Pharrell, right? All of these albums have Pharrell. He sings the chorus on a song, or he produced a bunch of tracks, and so these are albums that I could go on Wikipedia or I could go on All Music Guide and I could find this information. It's out there in the world. But like to have it all in, this is the music on my hard drive and in my title account, right? To have it all cross-referenced this way is really a pretty different experience from what other apps in the world are doing. And you can see that this even extends down into things like production credits, right? So these are albums where Pharrell maybe he's not singing or rapping on a song or anything like that. He's really just, he's contributed music. He's written the words that people are singing. He's doing the beats, right? And so these are, again, this kind of cross-referenced within my library connections is something that's pretty unique to Roon and something that we really take a lot of pride in. And so as I kind of scroll down the page here, you can see we're kind of going from this, as we kind of cross this border here, now we're really getting into all of the music Pharrell has ever released, right? And as I kind of scroll down here, you can see like Roon has identified the fact that there are 8 different Snoop Dogg albums out there that include Pharrell Williams on them, right? There are Jay-Z albums. There are, these are all ways that I can kind of explore. I can explore Pharrell's career and really get a sense of kind of who he is and where his work appears. If I want to explore from Pharrell in kind of a different direction, I might click through to R&B, right? And now I land on a page that's kind of looking at my library and giving me a sense of all of the R&B that I've collected over the years. And I'm a pretty big R&B listener, so this is a pretty common destination for me. And what's cool is I can click through and view all of the R&B albums in my library. You can see that that's kind of what I'm focused on here. These are the 730 albums in my library that are R&B, and I can flip that over to date. Now I kind of get this sort of timeline experience of all of the R&B in my library. And if I want to explore in kind of a different direction, I can go back to R&B and drill down to soul, right? And I can go from there down to Motown, right? And so all of these are just paths for understanding your music and exploring and really kind of, you can imagine the experience of being able to hit play to any room of the house and being able to kind of just dump a bunch of files into the app and have this sort of browsing experience. Just to go back, yeah, go ahead, Shane.
Where's all the information curate from?
So this is something that we've been working on it for years, and we continue to work on this, pretty much every day. I mean, the team that we have that works on this stuff grows, it grows month by month. But we source metadata from a lot of different sources, right? And so this is a pretty unique thing for us, where we're licensing data from some sources, we're pulling in data from crowdsourced information that's out there, things like Music Brains. And so we kind of pulled this all together, and we run this massive kind of in-house process that happens every day that just creates this big map of all of the music and every artist and every composer and every engineer. It just generates this view of the world every single day. And so it's not something that I could say to you like, oh, we go out and we license music from like All Music, although we do use the same providers as those guys, right? And it's not like you could go to Music Brains and see the data there. What you're seeing in Roon is really, it's the kind of the culmination. I mean, I don't want to say culmination because it keeps improving, but this is, we've been doing this for a long time, right? Even in Sulus, we had much richer metadata than anybody else was doing in 2006, 2007. And over the years, our many years with Meridian and all of the, we've had Roon out there for almost 6 years now, right? 6 years. And so this is something that's pretty homegrown for us, this metadata. And it's for us, it's a really kind of a cornerstone of what the product is. So I can actually show you a little bit more here. So again, these are the albums in my library. A lot of them are from Tidal. A couple thousand of them are on my laptop hard drive here. And it's really nice to browse this way. But it's 4,700 albums, right, Shane? So I'm glad I'm not browsing it like on an iPod or like in a folder tree, like a big list of artists. But right. It's still quite a lot to go through. And so we have this feature that we call Focus. And the way that Focus works is that all of these are different ways that I can filter my library, right? So, if you're a jazz fan, you might come in here and, you might say, well, I'm only in the mood for jazz right now. And now it's filtered down to, looks like a little bit under 900 albums. And then from there, you might say, well, I actually only want jazz from, let's say, 1950 until, let's go to 1968. Right. And so now I've gone from, 4,700 albums down to less than 300. Right. And if you're a jazz fan, you're going to really see all the familiar faces here. And it's going to be really easy for you to go through and say, OK, like I'm not sure what I'm in the mood for, but, Miles Smile sounds great or whatever. Right. So this is a very, very powerful feature, and it doesn't only work for music metadata. It works for things like file formats and quality and, what have I listened to this week? What have I not listened to in a year? What have I never listened to, right? I mean, as a kind of an obsessive music collector, I have more albums than I would like to admit that I haven't found the time to listen to yet, right? So it's a great tool for that as well, for kind of drilling down and kind of just following your nose to whatever you're in the mood for on a given evening, right? So I can let me actually if I can just touch on one thing here. So another way that we kind of like really work to bring all of this metadata to life. I mean, this is Kind of Blue. If for anyone who's not a jazz fan, this is probably the most famous jazz album of all time. And what's cool is that you can see we've found for each track here that it's composed by Miles Davis. I think every track on this album is composed by Miles Davis. But what you're seeing here is that, for instance, the track All Blues, what these little numbers here are telling me is that the Miles Davis wrote All Blues, but a lot of people in the world have heard Miles Davis's version of that song, and they've gone out and they've done their own kind of cover version or performance of it. And so once I click through from that, I'm seeing Herbie Mann and Freddie Hubbard, and this is just another way to kind of browse that's extremely powerful. This is actually something that we originally designed, with classical in mind. So I mean, I'm a classical listener. I'm not a huge classical, it's not my mainstay, but this is a feature that we designed for classical music. And so you can see here that like if I go to someone like Beethoven, like Shane, we have people who, it's always tricky to find Beethoven in almost any music app in the world, right? Because Beethoven didn't release albums, right? He's been dead for a couple hundred years. He's like, what Beethoven did was he wrote compositions. And so what Roon is letting you do here for classical music is you can actually browse the compositions that he wrote, and you can see there's 41 compositions in my library, but on Tidal there's another 750 pieces here, right? And when I click through to these pieces, I also get a really nice overview of what Beethoven has actually done, right? This is going through, and it's this little spinner here is taking a minute because Beethoven's Ninth Symphony here has been probably performed hundreds, if not thousands, of times, right? And so this is going a little bit slower than I would expect. Maybe it's because I'm doing the stream at the moment and whatever. But the point is that for even for a classical collector, or even if you want to like browse, what did Bob Dylan write? What did Prince write? Roon is going to let you browse in these directions, and you can see that this one Beethoven symphony, Beethoven's Ninth, has been performed almost 1,500 times, right? And what's really cool here, Shane, is that like the people that gravitate to Roon are, they're music experts, they're obsessives, and so you can see how these are sorted, right? 1,500 different performances of this symphony. When you're looking at the ones that are the most popular among the Roon among Roon users, you can be reasonably sure that these are going to be some of the best performances ever, right? Because they don't kind of rise to the top without being notable in some way, whether it's because of who was the conductor or the recording or just the quality of the performance. When you're using Roon and you're able to browse in these kinds of directions, you're kind of tapping into some of the things that make the Roon user base so special and expert in music, right? So yeah, I'm happy to keep going, Shane. You jump in at any point here, but I guess the other thing I would just kind of mention here is we've used what we know about the Roon user base to generate a bunch of really, really powerful recommendation features. So let me just switch out of my office here, and I'm going to just play this in the living room so I don't mess up our stream here. But what I can do is if I click through to this Berlin Philharmonic album here, I can hit play and I can hear the whole album. But I can also come in here and click on Roon Radio. And what that's going to do is it's going to begin playing some of the content from this album. And then what it's immediately going to do when the sort of first performance ends is it's going to go out and it's going to find all of the other, people who tend to listen to this particular recording of Beethoven. What else are they listening to? What else is recommended, right? And so it's going to kind of put all of that together, and it's going to give this is not working for some reason, but anyway, it's going to give me this Roon Radio experience, and that kind of works whether you are clicking on an artist, an album, a song. You could queue up a couple albums for your dinner party, and if the music that you queued up runs out, Roon Radio will kind of save the day and keep the music playing, right? So it's a very, very powerful tool, and you can see that we're also using that right here on this page. So like if we go back to, let's go to Bob Dylan for a second here, right? So if we go to a Bob Dylan album, what's going to happen is it's going to give you those recommendations right alongside the content. And so these discovery features are a very powerful tool. Roon users tend to have really have an affection for their own music, but Roon also gives you all these tools for kind of exploring outside of your own library. So this discover screen that we have is another good example. You can kind of see here that we are looking at my library. We're identifying different kinds of genres and different kinds of record labels, and you can see in this case we've identified that there's a track here that's a collaboration between multiple different artists in my library, right? So I'm a huge Grant Green fan as kind of a jazz guy, but I love Bobby Hutcherson also, and because I've used Roon so much, obviously it's identifying that this is a collaboration that might be interesting for me. So the one other thing I would just mention here is, again, Roon is a kind of a multi-zone system here. So I was going to play to the living room before, but I have music in the kitchen, I have music in the bedroom, and if I'm getting ready to make dinner, I might come in here and say, well, there's the kitchen, and I want the same thing to play in the living room and also like in the backyard, right? And now those are all together, and when I hit play, they're going to be playing, all over the house. And let me see if I can actually, if I can just show this to you. I guess I'm going to play some Biggie in the backyard right now. I hope I don't wake up
Hmm.
the neighbors. Let's lower the patio zone down there. Um, I'm not sure exactly what I'm playing here, but this is what I was mentioning before, Shane. Uh, when the music is playing, you can see very clearly here that in my living room, this is playing at perfect high quality, right? The
Yep.
MQA is being decoded properly. The authentication is happening, and it's streaming to my Unity Atom in the living room. You can tell because of the color of the light here that that it's lossless all the way through,
Right.
right? Whereas in my kitchen, I actually I have to fix this, but I have a little bit of a Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi has a little bit of a dead zone in the kitchen, and when I'm in there making dinner or whatever, it's not exactly like a critical listening environment. So I have Roon set to kind of automatically lower the quality just to make sure that when I'm playing some high res content like this, I don't have any dropouts or anything like that, right? So again, these are just ways that like with a couple quick settings and a couple quick like linking it all up, it's very easy for me to play Notorious B.I.G. All across the house and the backyard and everything, and everything's kind of playing in the right quality, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of a quick. I hope it felt quick. It's kind of a quick tour of the just some of the ways that Roon I think is different from what else is out there.
Yeah, go through the DSP section there. I found that out today.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't always include DSP in my when I do my demos because I tend to kind of lean towards sort of the lossless way, but Roon absolutely, if this is your thing, I mean we have incredibly powerful capabilities here, right? So you have the ability to set a parametric EQ. You can bring in a convolution curve that you've generated elsewhere and bring that in here. We have a few different kinds of EQ, and then obviously things like speaker setup are really just like this is sort of a speaker setup is really kind of like a Swiss Army knife almost for if you have a speaker that's a little bit further away or something was you had an installer who ran wires through the wall and they messed up the phase, right? There's all these ways to use the speaker setup tool to get your room exactly right, and so the sound quality comes through exactly the way that you want. And these are tools that are available for any zone that's connected to Roon. So it really gives you a lot of power there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I was thinking about because the PEQ. I was like, how would I even adjust that?
I'm sorry, which one?
The PEQ, the parametric.
Yeah,
You know,
so I
the
mean,
kind of
you
measurements.
can come in here and type in the values, and I know that like people on our community site like share different values that they think make their speakers or their headphones sound great. But you can also just come in here and play around with the curve and sit on the couch and see what sounds good to your ears, right? So this is it's if you want to go the manual route or you want to change exactly which kind of filter you're using, all these capabilities are included. And we have a lot of people who love spending time on this stuff, and we have a lot of customers who have been using Roon for years and have never touched the DSP stuff at all, right? So
Right, right.
we try to kind of tick all those boxes for all the different kinds of people that use Roon. But it's a fantastic tool if you're kind of interested in going that direction.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I saw that today, this afternoon, when I was listening to it. Where
Yep.
so where does the metadata come from your own collection, from your own, like your MP3 or your FLAC files? Do you have to get that done yourself?
So
Like you got to tag your own music yourself?
so I will tell you that you people have put in like wave files, right? So these are files that have no metadata in them at all. They say like track one, track two, track three, that kind of thing. And Roon, in many cases, will still be able to figure it out as if it was a CD that you put into a CD ripper or something and pull down all the metadata for you. So Roon is this is something that we've spent a lot of time working on. Maybe I'll stop sharing for now. This is something that we've put a lot of time into working on, and Roon works really hard to identify every file, every album that you bring in. We have all these automated processes. You could, if you have a big messy folder that has 400 files from different albums, we try to understand that, okay, this is probably not an album. Every track has different metadata, but all that stuff
Right.
is automatic. And then when that identification happens, it all lives inside of Roon. So we never modify your files. Like, I know for me, this was like in our product design process, I was very insistent on this because I had times when you put something into iTunes and it's like a soundtrack or a compilation, and it splits it up into 42 folders, and you can't find your
Yep.
album anymore, and it changed all the tags. So Roon will pull in all of this very rich metadata automatically, with no extra input from you, but it won't actually touch the files. And in the kind of rare cases when Roon can't identify an album, we have some tools in the app where you can say, here's the name of the album, here's the name of the artist, and you can kind of look through the metadata that we have available. And once you match it up, you get the same rich metadata that you would get from an automatic find, right? So it'll pull in all the credits and the genres, and it'll match it up to the different. I didn't actually show this to you before, but like if you have an album that you ripped 15 years ago to MP3 and you lost
Yep.
the CD since then, and you don't have it in high quality, when you put that MP3 into Roon, there will be a little tab on the album that says versions. And if you're logged into Tidal or you're logged into Qobuz, 1 second later you've like replaced the MP3s. I mean, replaced. You've added the high res Qobuz copy or the MQA copy from Tidal to your library, and you've kind of fixed that error, 15 years later. So it's another way that our metadata kind of lets you grow your collection and upgrade your albums, and really delivers a good experience that way.
Oh, that's pretty cool. What's I know you guys. I guess you're known to be like the audiophile kind of music program. Is there any future plans to integrate anything else like Spotify or something like that? iTunes Music. I don't know.
We get that question a lot. I mean, I think I can safely say that we would love to integrate with all kinds of different services,
Yep.
and we are talking to many different services on a daily basis, and trying to add more integrations to the product. But I will say, for us, the only way that we're able to do all of that kind of metadata magic that I showed you is
Right.
through very, very close collaboration with Tidal and with Qobuz, and with the companies that we're working on integrating in the future. And so the key thing for us is we want to add more integrations, but we don't want to degrade the experience of the product. When I'm browsing through the credits of an album and looking at we can't do that in the way that, like, when you're in like Sonos or something and you're browsing Spotify, for example, the Sonos system is talking directly to Spotify, and you're browsing directly there. And so in Roon, you're always looking at our metadata, right? We've built this metadata infrastructure that's incredibly rich and detailed. And so for us, sending you back out to the world where it's just kind of artist names and there's no data there, it would be I mean, we've done integrations like that in the past in previous products. And for now, we're pretty focused on kind of maintaining the quality of those integrations, and not just sort of adding every service that has an API or something like that, right? So
Right. Right.
there's definitely more integrations coming. I can't say all of the names quite yet, but it's definitely actively working on that stuff. But for us, we really need to partner with services that deliver us massive data dumps on a daily basis, and they get processed in our infrastructure. And if you want to see Spotify and Roon, make sure you let Spotify know.
This gentleman says, "Tell Mike to get NAD's ass their crap in order." Is there an issue with NAD that you're
Um,
aware of?
I don't. I mean, I know that our team that works with the partners has all kinds of partners that have 15 incredibly like smooth products and then one or two that have some problems. I don't know specifically which problems they're having with NAD, but I can tell you that this is one of the sort of side effects of the Roon Ready and the Roon tested program is that if you buy a device and you use it with Roon, everything just kind of works and you hit play and it's easy. You don't have to configure anything. And so, for us, when we say a product is Roon tested or Roon Ready, we need to be able to meet that standard, right? So there's products out in the world that we would like them to work with Roon, but they don't work with Roon right now because the certification hasn't been completed. I'm not talking about NAD. I'm speaking in general terms. Like sometimes partners have a very tough time meeting our requirements. They have a chipset that doesn't work the way that they want it to, or it's not actually as capable as they hoped, right? And so the certification process can be difficult for audio manufacturers, but for us, we feel like if you are subscribing to Roon and you are putting Roon in all the different rooms of your home, you have an expectation of the quality of the experience that you're going to get. And so we really, we really have to kind of hold a hard line on some of that stuff and say to someone, sorry, like, I know we've been working on this for a year, but it's still not certified. Like, you still haven't fixed this problem and that problem and so on. So it's very difficult stuff. And I wouldn't speak on any partner specifically, but I would just say that this is something that we take very seriously, right? So it's a daily fight.
When you certify something, do you keep everything that you certified just in case something goes wrong? You can go back to that particular product.
Yeah, so that's actually part of the certification process for us. We've had people accuse us of like, oh, you're trying to charge manufacturers or this. This is not a
Really?
revenue stream for us, right? We really our revenue stream comes from people subscribing because they love the product, right? So we don't charge for certifications, but yeah, it's. I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. What was the question again? I apologize.
Just in case there's like a bug or something like that, do you keep all the
Oh
products that
yeah,
you
sorry.
certified?
Yeah, so part of our agreement with the certification is it's not about money, but we do require that they send us a couple pieces of loaner gear and that stays in our QA department and they have regular access to it. And so it's actually a really amazing thing for us that, like, I mean, if you buy some random device off of Amazon, it'll probably work with Roon, right? But if you buy something that's Roon tested or Roon ready, if you contact our support team and you're having some kind of problem, there's a very good chance that like a couple hours later, someone's going to go and they're going to pull the device off the shelf and put it on the workbench and plug it in, and they're going to try it with the same file format that you're using. And if there's a problem, there's probably an email going out to the manufacturer, that day or the next day. And so we resolve a lot of very tricky, complex technical problems because we have access to all of this gear. It's another benefit of the Roon tested and Roon ready program.
Huh, you guys must play with a lot of stuff every day.
Yeah, I have some nice toys here, but the guys whose job it is to play with the toys all day, those guys, I mean, I love what I do also, but those guys really have a good time every day, right? I mean, they have some tough days also, but they're playing with toys all day long. It's not a bad job.
So I have been airplaying to one of these Techniques CD player things, and I realized that I had like a little cheap $100 netbook lying around. I was like, wow. I was like, maybe I could just put that on there, and I did with the USB A to B cable, and I had to download a couple of drivers. Is there like a benefit from going to like a little cheap little laptop like that, like $100, to getting like a Nucleus? Like, what is so different about my little cheap laptop and what's in a Nucleus?
I guess the thing about Nucleus is that we really spent a lot of time stripping the software down. I mean, it's Linux, but it's really been stripped down to just the basics. So there aren't background processes kicking off, and there aren't, there's everything running on that device is purely focused on delivering the best Roon experience, right? And there's no configuration. And this is with a Nucleus. This is if you build a what we call ROC, it's Roon Optimized Core Kit. If you buy the kit and you put it together, these devices are purpose built, right? So they're really made to be an appliance. And I've had one on my desk here for 3 years, and like I don't even have to reboot it or anything, right? It just sits there and it serves up the music. And I try to avoid like talking too much about sound quality because with audio files, it's I mean you
Right.
can quickly it's some people will accuse there's all kinds of accusations that get thrown around, but I can tell you that when you're using Roon OS, which is what runs Nucleus and Rock and in the future some other devices as well, when you're using Roon OS, you know that there's nothing extra happening in the chain at all, right? It's only about the music and your library, and so it's it really gives you kind of a peace of mind. Having been part of Sulus and part of Meridian and part of Roon, uh, for me, it's like the idea of living without some sort of appliance around that I can hit play and the music just starts all the
Mm-hmm.
time. It's a really nice experience. I mean, you could do that with a laptop, and if the laptop is set up correctly, and I think that your day to day experience, you can have a great experience with a core running on your MacBook, right? You can have
Mm-hmm.
we have customers running it on a 10-year-old laptop, right?
Right.
So it's pretty flexible that way, and it doesn't require a huge investment in a server. And there are people who do that, and they have great experiences also. But for me, Nucleus is about that kind of peace of mind, right? It's a great plug and play experience that your music's going to be sounding its best, and you
Right.
can just hit play and go. That's all that's required.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I didn't think about the other stuff in the background. Um, do the artists get paid for each listen? Like you're not like a, like a.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, it's a question that kind of sounds like we're a streaming service, which we are
Right.
not. So when you play music from Tidal and you play music from Kobaz, artists get paid.
Yeah.
When you have a CD that you've ripped to your hard drive and you hit play, if you acquired that CD and those files the right way, then the artist has already been paid when you got the music in the first place, right? So we're not a streaming service. If you're viewing the lyrics in the app, there's some licensing that happens there that we report back when you're that kind of stuff, right? So there's some stuff that happens that way, but yeah, that's a question for streaming services, and we are not we're not licensing music and reselling it to
Right.
customers, so we're not in a position to pay for plays because we sell subscriptions to Roon.
And speaking of subscriptions to Rune, let's talk about the price.
Yep. So we actually just recently, after years of by popular demand, we just recently rolled out monthly pricing.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of jump in and try Roon out for a couple months and see if it works for you. You get a little bit of a discount if you purchase annually. So if you're paying for the whole year up front, you save a couple bucks a month that way. We kind of like to think of it as like it's like a sandwich and a cup of coffee a month or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's some people have said that it's a very expensive product. I guess for a music player, there are a lot of free open source things out there that don't do all the stuff that Roon does. They don't have, they haven't invested in the product and the metadata and the audio infrastructure like we have. So compared to a free product, it is a little bit expensive that way, right? But for us, the experience of being able to browse your library and find new content to add is it's a pretty easy sell for us.
Mm-hmm.
And for people who are interested, for people who are averse to the subscription model, we also
Right.
do sell a lifetime subscription. That is pretty expensive, but if you want to pay once and have Roon forever, you can do it's either 9.99 a month, 12.99 a month if you're paying monthly. Sorry, the 9.99 is if you pay for the annual subscription, and then the lifetime is 6.99. So a
Mm-hmm.
couple different ways to get on board depending on how you want to subscribe. But I would definitely encourage everyone to do a free trial and see how the experience feels to you.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, in the greater picture, I guess you can look at it as I think a lot of people that have really nice systems, obviously, like speakers cost a lot. So does your hardware, your player. This is kind of like another piece of the puzzle. $700. Maybe you got $20,000 speakers. I think $700 is a pretty small price to pay to kind of get your music in one location, and it's super easy to find the stuff too. Like
That's
very
that's
easy. especially when you're just searching for something and it pops up, and you can kind of pick out, do I want to listen to from my own collection or title or Kobaz, and which has the better quality. I like that feature too, where I can see,
Yep.
oh, maybe it's better in MQA than it is in FLAC on Kobaz.
That-
So I think
That's
that's
right.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had an experience, maybe 10 years ago in the Meridian days, where we had a customer who was running a huge Meridian Sulu system, invested probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in it. And he also, alongside of it, had a Sonos system in like 5 other rooms of the house. And so he was maintaining 2 libraries and 2 sets of playlists and 2 sets of favorites. And these two things couldn't speak the same language, right? There was the high-end system, and then there was the like kitchen and bedroom system or whatever, right? And so that was like something that was really in the front of our minds when we were putting Roon together and preparing to launch, was this idea that like, you may have a listening room that you really invested in in the amp and the speakers, preamp and so on. And, Roon should be a component in that system. And maybe for a lot of people, or for some people, it could be maybe the cheapest component in that system, but maybe it's the one that you have the warmest feelings towards because it's the thing that you touch every day.
Yeah.
But that when you leave that listening room, you shouldn't have to switch the app and switch the list of playlists or whatever. This experience should follow you around the house, whether it's coming out of a Meridian system or a clock radio, right? It should work both ways. So that was kind of a big inspiration for us. And you're right. In a lot of systems, Roon is one of the cheapest pieces. And we have a lot of people who are DIY also. That Roon is like one of the more expensive pieces, right? They might have. I mean, even in my home with all of this audio gear that I have around here, I have 2 rooms. I think the patio, because it's out in my garage in the snow right now, and in my bedroom I have an older Meridian system. Both of those are powered by Raspberry Pi, right? And so if you're a little bit techie, you can buy that for $80 and snap on a little hat on that and load up the firmware and get on your Wi-Fi, and it's another zone, right? So at that point, you're like, you paid for Roon, and now you can add rooms around the house for like $100 a piece. It's pretty sweet to not have to make that choice.
Is there like a limit of devices, or is it just however good your Wi-Fi is, your internet
Um,
is?
there's no limit. Yeah,
No.
we haven't heard anybody hit the limit. I think you're probably likely to run out of bandwidth on your
Yeah.
network before you're gonna like hit any kind of limited room.
All right, man. I think that wraps it up. I mean, good presentation. I learned a few things. I learned that timeline thing was pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's
awesome.
really neat.
Well,
Yeah.
it's great to talk to you, Shane.
Yeah, man.
We have a lot of big plans this year, so
Yeah.
when we have some more of our new developments, new features, new products coming out, I'd love to come back and talk to you again.
No, definitely.
Cool. Thanks so
All
much for
right,
having me.
man. No problem.
Have a
I
good
can't
night.
hear that. I can't hear that. Is that working? I guess you can't hear it either. It's a little applause. I guess it's not working.
Oh, gotcha. No, I heard it. I wasn't sure what it was.
All right.
I appreciate it though.
All right. Well, guys, thanks for checking out the podcast here. Thanks for asking the questions, Mike. Come back again soon. We'll see you guys again in the